A skinhead is a member of a subculture which originated among working-class youths in London, England in the 1960s and soon spread to other parts of the United Kingdom, with a second working-class skinhead movement emerging worldwide in the late 1970s. Motivated by social alienation and working-class solidarity, skinheads are defined by their close-cropped or shaven heads and working-class clothing such as Dr. Martens and steel-toe work boots, braces, high-rise and varying-length straight-leg jeans, and button-down collar shirts usually slim-fitting and check or plain. The movement reached a peak at the end of the 1960s, experienced a revival in the 1980s and since then has endured in multiple contexts worldwide. The rise to prominence of skinheads came in two waves, with the first wave taking place in the late 1960s in the UK. The first skinheads were working-class youths motivated by an expression of alternative values and working-class pride, rejecting both the austerity and conservatism of the 1950s, early 1960s and the more middle-class or bourgeois hippie movement and peace and love ethos of the mid to late 1960s. Skinheads were instead drawn towards more working-class outsider subcultures, incorporating elements of early working-class mod fashion in Jamaican music and fashion, especially from Jamaican rude boys. In the earlier stages of the movement, a considerable overlap existed between early skinhead subculture, mod subculture, and the rude boy subculture found among Jamaican British and Jamaican immigrant youth, as these three groups interacted and fraternized with each other within the same working class and poor neighborhoods in Britain. As skinheads adopted elements of mod subculture and Jamaican British and Jamaican immigrant rude boy subculture, both first and second generation skins were influenced by the rhythms of ska, rocksteady and reggae, as well as sometimes African American soul and rhythm and blues. The late 1970s and early 1980s saw a revival or second wave of the skinhead subculture, with increasing interaction between its adherents and the emerging punk movement. A street-level working-class offshoot of punk rock, soon became a vital component of skinhead culture, while the Jamaican genres beloved by first-generation skinheads were filtered through punk and new wave in a style known as two-tone. With these twin musical movements, the skinhead subculture diversified and contemporary skinhead fashions ranged from the original clean-cut 1960s mod and rude boy-influenced styles to less strict punk-influenced styles. During the early 1980s, political affiliations grew in significance and split the subculture, demarcating the far-right and far-left strands, although many skins described themselves as apolitical. In Great Britain, the skinhead subculture became associated in the public eye with membership of groups such as the far-right National Front and British Movement. By the 1990s, neo-Nazi skinhead movements existed across all of Europe and North America, but were counterbalanced by the presence of groups such as skinheads against racial prejudice, which sprung up in response. To this day, the skinhead subculture reflects a broad spectrum of political beliefs, even as many continue to embrace it as a largely apolitical working-class movement. Skinhead culture became so popular by 1969 that even the rock band Slade temporarily adopted the look as a marketing strategy. The subculture gained wider notice because of a series of violent and sexually explicit novels by Richard Allen, notably Skinhead and Skinhead Escapes. Due to large-scale British migration to Perth, Western Australia, many British youths in that city joined Skinhead and Sharpies gangs in the late 1960s and developed their own Australian style. By the early 1970s, the skinhead subculture started to fade from popular culture, and some of the original skins dropped into new categories such as the suedeheads, smoothies, and boot boys. Some fashion trends returned to the mod roots, with brogues, loafers, suits, and the slacks and sweater look making a comeback. In the late 1970s, the skinhead subculture was revived to a notable extent after the introduction of punk rock. Most of these revivalist skinheads reacted to the commercialism of punk by adopting a look that was in line with the original 1969 skinhead style. This revival included Gary Hodges and Hoxton Tom McCourt and Suggs, later of the band Madness. Around this time, some skinheads became affiliated with far-right groups such as the National Front and the British Movement, From 1979 onwards, punk influenced skinheads with shorter hair, higher boots, and less emphasis on traditional styles grew in numbers and grabbed media attention, mostly due to football hooliganism. There still remained, however, skinheads who preferred the original mod-inspired styles. Eventually, different interpretations of the skinhead subculture expanded beyond Britain and continental Europe. In the United States, certain segments of the hardcore punk scene embraced skinhead styles and developed their own version of the subculture. Bill Osterby has argued that skinhead culture more broadly grows strength from specific economic circumstances. In a BBC interview, he remarked in the late 70s and early 80s, working class culture was disintegrating through unemployment and inner city decay, and there was an attempt to recapture a sense of working class solidarity and identity in the face of a tide of social change.